Hey everybody, I'm Alex Big Blue, and this is my top 10 Fantastic Four villains. So today I'll be telling you guys my personal favorite top 10 Fantastic Four villains from 10 all the way to number 1. So let's go ahead and get it started off. At number 10, Galactus. So it don't get any more bigger or more threatening than Galactus, really, I don't think. I would say it doesn't, at least within reason, especially for the Fantastic Four that they run into very often, because Galactus is a problem in general that definitely comes at them a lot and at Earth a lot, what they have to face off against him. And Galactus is extremely big, which I like. That sets me apart immediately from almost any character in Marvel or otherwise comic books. And his powers are just about almost unending. It seems, seemingly compared to other characters, because his power cosmic can do just about anything. It seems like at times. Certainly can do all kinds of different things. That's for sure. And yeah, he's just a super intelligent and super extremely powerful villain or character in general, but I call him a villain because even though a lot of people thinks he's more of like a force, which may be true and fair, in most contexts that he's used in, I definitely say he is the villain, in my opinion. Because, I mean, if there's a giant monster trying to eat your world, then they're a villain to you at the very least. I'm going to call him a villain. But yeah, nonetheless, he's a great character with all kinds of great backstory, including, of course, stuff with Silver Surfer, which crosses over with Fantastic Four a lot. But yeah, he's a great villain specifically in general and for the Fantastic Four as well. And I love that character. At number 9, the most popular character for sure, and the most infamous, I would say, also, Doctor Doom. So Doctor Doom is a great character, obviously. He has a pretty decent, pretty interesting in general backstory, filled with all kinds of crazy stuff. Probably one of the most in-depth ones as far as that goes too. And he is definitely probably I would say maybe the most villainous Fantastic Four villain they come up against often, at least. He's just about pure evil as far as that goes, and he's a narcissist and just a very vile villain, honestly, which is what makes him such a great villain. He's not one of the ones I like the most because he is kind of so annoying sometimes, but he is a very fascinating character and for a very evil character, very cool in that regard too, because of his awesome costume, with his, of course, his metal armor. And I think his powers, including his sorcery abilities, I believe that's technically what it would be called, and his intelligence overall for making the Doombots, all of his crazy machinations where it keeps him out of the Castle Von Doom and all that stuff as well, is great. And yeah, I just think he's obviously one of the biggest threats that they usually run into. And he's a great arch nemesis for Reed Richards and for the Fantastic Four. At number 8, Puppet Master. So Puppet Master for me is probably the most outlier maybe of all the 10 I chose as far as being different and kind of unique, because he's not really physically like in a fight that much of a threat at all. But he is, however, an extremely dangerous villain because of his like mind control abilities using like those dolls or whatever you technically call them. And I just think he's a really cool and likable character for a villain because even though he does some messed up stuff and some twisted things, and it may go back and forth, I haven't read all of his issues, obviously, but the ones I've read him in, he typically always does care about his daughter, Alicia, and in a messed up kind of way is sort of trying to help her through mind control, which I find fascinating, honestly. That's really interesting. And he sometimes a lot of times does the right thing when Thing actually has the conversation with him at the end of them too. So I think that's pretty cool that he actually does that. And yeah, he's been a really kind of creepy and different kind of threat for the Fantastic Four for a long time. And I really like him as a villain for them. At number 7, Namor, the Submariner. So Namor might be well known more as kind of an anti-hero, but he really always goes back and forth between an anti-hero and anti-villain all the time. And any list or anything like that you look up for Fantastic Four villains always has Namor there, and for good reason, I'd say. Because even though he's been a member of the team before, and he's great as a hero, and I like him as that, that's why he's as high as he is as well, he, as a villain, is always very often against Reed Richards, specifically because he always is infatuated with Sue and wants the Invisible Woman, so that brings a lot of conflict. And also, in general, he just attacks the Earth and or the Fantastic Four because of the Atlanteans and his plight there. The world's going against each other, so a lot of times becomes a huge threat for that for a lot of heroes, but also very much specifically Fantastic Four. And so he's been antagonistic towards them as many times as probably about anybody, except for maybe Doctor Doom and maybe one or two others. Galactus, maybe. I don't know. He's been a lot of times too. But yeah, he's a huge threat and villain when he wants to be, anyways, against the Fantastic Four, despite also, like I said, being their ally sometimes. At number 6, Wizard. So Wizard is the leader of the Frightful Four every time, or almost every time. Every time I've seen him, he always is, so I assume he always is. But yeah, Wizard is a great character. He is a somewhat mental, I don't know, like IQ wise, where he stacks up exactly, but he is a very intelligent rival to Reed Richards specifically, and he has issues with him and is kind of jealous of him and stuff. So he makes a great, intelligent rival for him. His intellect is definitely a problem for him because he makes that wizard suit and is super threatening for that. Very powerful, very fast. He has blasts and everything pretty much. But yeah, Wizard in general is a character that I like a lot because he works together with other villains to try to get the job done. And he sort of usually seems to have a little bit of like a code of honor with, like, at least more or less sticking up for his other villains a little bit. More than most villains will, where they turn on each other immediately. Whether or not they get along is another thing, but he typically tries to do, like, seems like he tries to be honorable with each other like that, more than they would usually get. And I always kind of think that's interesting when you get ones that does anything like that at all, especially for a villain, anyways. At number 5, Claw. So Claw has been a character in about the last, I'd say, decade or so that I started reading in comics specifically. And ever since then, I've really liked him a lot. I think he's a great villain, and he's pretty unique. He's made of pure sound, I believe, is what it is technically. And he has sound powers in general, regardless. And he's always a really great villain. And I think the look of the character is very striking, the red and purple and all of that. And I just think he's a lot different than most other villains. And that makes me really like him a lot. And he's a great villain for the Fantastic Four a lot, specifically, as well as Black Panther and other heroes as well. Number 4, Sandman. So Sandman is also, of course, more well known as a Spider-Man villain, but he's absolutely a Fantastic Four villain as well because he'll always show up in any of the things that they bring up their villains of. And he's been a member of the Frightful Four a bunch of times. I don't know if he was a villain outside that too specifically. I think he may have been, but a lot of times he's been on those teams. And yeah, he's just a great villain in general, and he always poses a good threat as a member of a team or otherwise for the Fantastic Four when fighting one or two of them. And yeah, Sandman is a character I've loved ever since Spider-Man 3, the movie. That movie had some things that I wish was better about it, but Sandman not being one of them. I thought Sandman was amazing in that movie. And I think Thomas Hayden Church playing him in that was great. I think the scene where he comes up and he's all sand trying to grab the locket is one of the best, honestly, one of the best scenes in a superhero movie for me as far as being emotional. And you getting what the character is trying to, the character is feeling right there. It's really great. I like that scene a lot. And yeah, I think ever since then, I've really liked him in any Spider-Man or other comics that I've read, including I like him as a hero or anti-hero when he does that sometimes, because he goes back and forth kind of becoming an anti-hero or anti-villain back and forth. Or a villain, I guess, even outright sometimes. But he's a character that's usually more likable and generally doesn't just want to kill everybody or anything like that. He has like a somewhat moral code in comparison to most villains. Number 3, Diablo. So Diablo is a character that I've started reading a ton of just recently for this list. And I had a bunch of issues with him in it, thankfully. Just like some of the others. And he's risen up this list all the way up to here because I think he's one of the best kind of like, not pure evil, but like pure villain, mostly like specifically characters that they have. He's definitely one of the top ones in that he is always a villain and he's wanting to like, I think basically rule the world or the land, however much of that he would get. And the thing is, within that context, it's not just like he's wanting to destroy like a few of the other ones. So of that type, I think he's definitely my favorite one. And the thing I'll say about him too is he has one of the most interesting backstories of all of them, if not the most, because he was in the past and he's a master of alchemy, and he has these potions that does all manner of things. And he was such a problem that people locked him up in the past in sort of place. I forget what they said exactly now, but he was there for like I think a couple hundred years or for a long time until the Thing eventually accidentally released him on one of their missions, which is kind of funny too. But yeah, and then since then ever since then he's always been a huge problem for the Fantastic Four. Whenever he shows up, he almost always gets close to killing them. At least in two or three of them I can think of off the top of my head. And he's a huge threat for him all with his alchemy powers. And in general, he's just a huge threat, like I said, and one of the better rivals for Reed Richards and also in general the entire Fantastic Four. At number 2, Annihilus. So Annihilus for me is first of all an extremely cool character that I think the looks of the character and his powers and all of that stuff and everything about him is very interesting. He has a really cool origin that I actually read in one issue. I also think, just in general, he's a very intriguing villain because he sometimes, in certain scenarios, will work with the Fantastic Four or anybody else, even Blastar, if it kind of behooves him to do so in any scenario. And at number 1, Terrax. So Terrax has become a character that I really love because he's just a great villain in general for a lot of reasons, but one of which is he's always looking to fight people almost for no reason out of nowhere. His hands are rated E for everybody, like people says. He literally fights pretty much every superhero he comes across, like at any point in time for various reasons. And one of my favorite things about him too, that is one of his kind of main character traits, I would say, is once Galactus changes Tyros into Terrax, which is what his name was before, by Tyros. As soon as he changes him into that, the first thing Terrax does is immediately tries to attack Galactus. He tries to kill him immediately, which is hilarious to me because that is literally what I think of him doing, in that scenario too. Before I even read that first issue of his first appearance. But yeah, Terrax is always just a super threatening physical villain, and I really like him. He's always trying to fight everybody, and he just kind of rushes in a lot of times a little bit too carelessly, I would even say, against teams or whatever else, but he's always hard to beat, and he's always a huge threat whenever he shows up. I'm Alex McGlue. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you later.